The first stage we'll be looking at is the forest from Advance Wars. In the game, this would be a battleground where two armies would fight each other. So in Smash Bros, this would be where fighters fight each other. Unlike Advance Wars, all fighters can traverse across both sides of the screen, at least until the boundary falls, at which point you can't change sides. But while you can't cross, all projectiles can, including items. This means that characters with strong projectiles would be encouraged to stay away from characters without strong projectiles, who themselves would want to stay close so they aren't vulnerable when the barrier falls. Once the barrier does fall, it takes 15 seconds before it disappears, and the game can continue on like normal. The next stage is Clock Tower from Castlevania 3. In this stage you have two platforms to fight on. One of them is the main platform, and the other is a secondary smaller platform, which is more isolated. There aren't any special gimmicks for this stage, just an interesting stage layout paired with one of the best Castlevania themes. Next is Castle Bleck from Super Paper Mario. Despite the unique theme, the stage is effectively a flat platform, except one side leads off the edge of the screen, while the other ends before a pit. This relatively simple change means that there's more space on the right side of the screen, and if you get launched to the right, you can't die by falling in a pit. However, this also means more players would want to stay closer to the right. Thus, the goal is to stay on the side of the screen with the least amount of fires relative to its safety. The fourth stage is Soggy Bog River from Wario Land Shake It. In this stage, there are two platforms on either end, and a flower sitting in the river in the middle. If you fall into the river, you won't drown, but it puts you in a vulnerable position that any sensible player would want to avoid. However, the flower is also dangerous, as if you land on top of it, after a few seconds it'll eat you and cause damage. Since the flower is in the middle, it segments the stage, so there isn't much space to fight on the ends. Usually there'd be about 2 players on each end, so eventually one will have to go to the other end, or take space on the flower. And if 2 players try to stand on the flower at the same time, the fight will be drawn to the middle, where chaos ensues. The fifth stage is Tetris, from Tetris. The stage is just a long platform, but at the ends there are deadly pits. Over the course of the match, Tetris blocks consistently fall from the top, and fall into lines. All of the platform is covered, so nowhere is safe. And if you get hit by them, you get launched off the stage. So you have to avoid them by either stalling off the edge until they fall, or by just moving to where they're not falling. This also means that while you fight other players, you also need to be aware of your surroundings. Not just to avoid the block, but possibly also to strategically hit the other player into one of the blocks to cause more damage. Of course, over time the blocks will naturally clear themselves, and the stage will be returned to normal, where the cycle can start over again. Next is Eagle's Tower from The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. In Smash Bros, the tower has 2 levels you can fight on. You mainly fight on the top of the tower where there is more airspace, but the lower level is also more isolated and more protected from the edge of the screen. This means that if you have higher damage than your opponent, you might want to go to the lower level where you can deal more damage without dying, and then move upwards to finish them off. However, it's also dangerous to navigate around the different levels without dying, making this a very unique stage in particular. This is the Flame Pipe from Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story. It's mostly flat with no pits to fall into, however the stage is also covered with 3 flame pipes. While most of the time they're doing nothing, occasionally a pipe will start smoking. Once it starts, 2 clouds will smoke out, and then starts burning. While there are pipes on both sides, there are 2 pipes on the left. This makes that area more dangerous. But since the leftmost pipe is also taller than the right, it gives more protection to whoever is launched, at least as long as the pipes aren't on fire. Lastly, we have a stage from Super Metroid, being the Ghost Ship. Here there are 3 relatively small platforms spread across the stage, which means if there are 4 players, there'll have to be at least 2 players on one platform. Each platform is the same length, but since the middle platform is low and central, it will be the one which probably attracts the most fighting. Also, just like the water in Soggy Bog River, you can't drown, though falling in makes you vulnerable to attacks. So that's about it. These are my 8 ideas for new Smash Bros. Stages, and maybe you liked a few of them.